Saturday's Warrior.
Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. I'm Trevor, and joining me today is Spencer from the 23 Personnel podcast. He is one of my pals from the College Huddle, and so today we are bringing you a special collaboration, College Huddle collaboration, in previewing the upcoming matchup between BYU-Texas Tech. This is a top 10 ranked matchup. Super stoked for it, and really excited to have Spencer on to learn a little bit more about Tech before we get into this game. So, Spencer, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, Trevor, happy to be on. We've been doing more of these crossover episodes with how the season's progressing for us, and really excited just to have more opportunities to talk about Texas Tech football. So, thanks for having me on.
Love it. And yeah, I mean, that is a big thing that I love about the College Huddle, about doing the show, is getting other folks like you on, learning more about other teams, and especially the Big 12. BYU, I mean, you've been in the Big 12 since its inception, in Southwest Conference. Prior to that, BYU was just ecstatic to be here, and I love the teams in the conference, and just also love being relevant in this conference. It obviously didn't work out for BYU with all the tiebreakers and things last year, but just so fun to be in the mix, playing these other high-level teams, these great brands, and especially this late into the season. So, which makes this game all the more exciting as we head into it, is just, we have College Game Day coming, which, I have my own opinions about that show at this point, but it doesn't change the fact that of what it means, its significance, the eyeballs that it brings. And there are a lot of people, BYU fans, especially, like, man, we are playing early in the morning. Like, what is this? And not fans of this. I grew up on the East Coast, so I've always loved 12 o'clock kickoffs, especially when I was in college and I was at BYU. 10 in the morning, like, I would roll out of bed, turn on the TV, and watch college football until I felt like getting up, until I had to get up and go do homework or something. Like, it was fantastic. So I think people are underestimating the amount of attention, national attention, that this is going to bring both these teams, especially BYU, who normally plays late at night, which works for me because it doesn't, I've got kids, I've got a life, like, I can't always watch in the middle of the day. I've got conflict. So at night actually works pretty well for me, even though it's terribly inconvenient for most people and they don't watch it. So we're going to get a lot of attention on this game. And regardless, I think it's a great tool for these two teams that are now ranked, and the playoff committee released its first rankings this week, tonight. We're recording Tuesday night, and both teams fared even better than with the AP. And so that's just putting even more of a spotlight on this game. So that was a really long way. I wasn't trying to hog all the oxygen in the room, but that was a long way of me getting around to just saying this is a big game. But I want to get to all that. But before we hop on that, I do want to ask you, Spencer, some of the hard hitting questions first, and really get these out of the way. But recently, Texas Tech made waves through Twitter with the announcement of the removal of the bevel from the logo. And I've got to know, where do you stand on this issue?
I'm probably not the one to ask about this because my Texas Tech fandom started in 2006, the year before I came out there as a freshman. My first year was 2007. So my fandom has always been with the beveled logo. I always liked it. I even liked the glitter helmets that we had for the early years when I was a fan. The black helmet with the glitter in it. They called it the bass boat helmet. It's like, man, I like it. People that tell me they know more about graphic design than I do, even though that's a large part of my job, tell me that the flat double T is fantastic. I like it just fine. I think it works better on, being able to be put out there on many different materials, whether it's the court for the basketball arena. logo at the midfield. It's probably the easiest logo to put on a shirt. Whether it's a screen print or embroidery or anything like that. It's probably like super simple for those production companies. I prefer the bevel. I know I skew more in the older audience, older Texas Tech fan group that say they prefer the bevel logo. I'm not burned up about it. I'm not upset that they're shifting the athletics branding towards the flat double T with some slight adjustments. But I mean, it's probably the least interesting answer to that question. I like the bevel, but I'm also not like all torn up about it changing. They're not changing the university logo. It's going to continue to be that way. That representation across the rest of the university. It's just going to be athletics that's going to adopt the flat double T.
Okay, well, fair enough. I have to say, I I'm a big proponent of changing it. It's just I do think some teams have moved away, like Oklahoma State still very much looks like Oklahoma State. I do get the people that are pro bevel for Texas Tech. Like it does change the dynamic. Like with the bevel, it is just we're just very familiar with it. It does stand out, but I'm just not a fan of it. Like the only reason why I even know that word bevel is because I looked up like just so I could tell people. I was like, that design, like these logos, like I don't like it. They need to get rid of it. It's starting to go away more. And we still have a couple left in the conference, but maybe they'll catch up. But I just think it's really dated at this point versus going to something that's really clean and timeless. And so I love it for Texas Tech, but I was really excited to see that as somebody with really no stake in the game. I'm just always happy versus teams like UVA that just added a bevel into their logo a couple years back. So wild to me. So anyway, now let's get to football. Actually, before we get to football, I've got the other one is this isn't so much a question. It's just I just want to express my deepest condolences to you about the policy on the throwing the tortillas. This I saw someone put it out there. I think it was Oklahoma State fan saying, "Hey, we need to just allow them to throw the tortillas, and then we'll just decline the penalty." That I would be all for doing something like that. It's wild to me. It's these weird, crazy traditions that make college sports so great, and I think we got to hold on to those, especially with realignment tearing so much apart and all these weird matchups that we get week in and week out. You got to hold on to the bit that we still have that makes college sports special, and the tortilla thing is definitely one of those things.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things that like it's blown up the past few years. It wasn't always this way. It was a very small number of tortillas that were being thrown at kickoff and kickoff only. Yeah, for whatever reason, it's kind of taken on its own thing. We've had our own internal discourse as fans. Like if you're really torn up about them getting rid of the tortillas, that like you're more of a fan of the tortillas in Texas Tech, you need to kind of reevaluate that. I think it's cool. It's unique. I know people that had tortillas thrown at their wedding as they were walking out, which I think is really cool. I wish I would have thought of that. It just wasn't that big of a deal when I was, when I was in school and when I was getting married way back when. The background here, this is an AI zhuzhed up. Like this was based on an actual image of tortillas being thrown. I had AI just throw in like 10 times as many actual tortillas. And then the first game after all that was made a big deal. I think it was against Oklahoma State. They had huge trash cans outside the gates and said, "Drop your tortillas here." And there were still a couple that were thrown. The biggest issue I think most Texas Tech fans have with it is the enforcement of similar policies across the rest of the conference. Under the guise of safety, you're not going to get hurt by a tortilla. But literally the week after this all came out, Arizona State fans were throwing literal bottles onto the field. No penalty, no public reprimand, no fines. They got fined $25,000 for rushing the field when Arizona State beat Texas Tech, but Texas Tech would be fined $100,000 for throwing a tortilla. So it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense. It just felt like we were very much singled out, but also like we had some very direct messages from our administration and from our head coach, like if you're too caught up into throwing a tortilla, like if you're going to do something that's going to hurt us, are you with us? Like it's been fun, and admittedly, our athletic director said like he took some heat like this summer, like it made a big deal, the 15-1 vote. We leaned into it with our preseason kickoff luncheon where they actually had tortillas on the table for all the attendees to throw up into the air. And we were being typical Texas Tech defiant, like we're gonna do it anyways. But as also typical Texas Tech things, like we leaned into it so hard, it was like now you've made it almost like a meme of itself. If we could throw the tortilla straight up in the air and they just fell back in the stands, it'd be one thing. But like it was more like, let's see how many we can get onto the field. And it's like, well, at that point, you're just hucking stuff onto the field just to be disruptive and not like part of this unique tradition. So, it led to also some interesting and kind of funny interactions on Twitter when Mission, the tortilla brand, came out and said, "Hey, did anybody think about what this is going to do to us?" And just stuff like that. Also, it was always interesting to see either opposing fans or the sideline reporters that didn't fully comprehend how Texas Tech fans were getting the tortillas into the stadium. They'd pick them up and eat them or take bites out of them. Like, you really don't want to be doing that, man, because like they're not allowed in the stadium and they check under people's hats. So it's like there's only so many other places these things can be coming in, and you just put that in your mouth.
In their prison wallet. So
like it's fun and unique, and I hate that it had to go, but there was not going to be a way to walk it back in any kind of like restrained way besides just taking it all away. So it is what it is. It's fun. I much more care about the team not having extra yards to have to make up or contend with because the fans are doing something stupid. So.
Well, if we get rid of everyone being able to throw things on the bottle, then or on the field, then Utah won't be able to throw water bottles at cheerleaders anymore. So, what are they going to do? So you got to think about everybody here with these policies.
Yeah, and also Texas Tech has been like in the crosshairs for many different teams and fan bases for throwing things. Gary Patterson at TCU alleged that he was, he's seen frozen water bottles being thrown at him, but then like he claimed it like it happened in the third quarter, and like we went back, like this was like a 95-degree day, and if you got hit with a frozen water bottle in the third quarter, like you're making this up. And then a couple of weeks ago with the Lance Leipold, the pocket knife being thrown, the video came out. It was a staff member. He dropped it, whether it was planted or it fell out.
Regardless.
It's like there was that. And there was the A&M one from years ago about, shoe polish and catfish bait. And we defaced their team buses at the hotel. It's like, that's funny. But then it was like they're smearing feces and I was like, no, man, it was shoe polish and stink bait, man. Let's not. Anyways, we also kind of felt like we were just under fire, like directly for something that was fairly innocuous as like a tortilla. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I would bring up and open up old wounds about the whole Mike Leach fiasco, but we're almost 15 minutes into this and we have yet to talk any actual ball. So I'm going to shift it. I'm going to bypass that. And maybe that's a conversation for another day, because I've got a lot of feelings on that. But so let's get into it. Let's just go straight to the offense. Let's start on that side of the ball. Everyone really knows Behren Morton. He is one of the big name quarterbacks in a league which surprisingly has become a league of quarterbacks. I mean, the Big 12 is chock full of really good QBs, and Behren Morton's certainly up there with them. And so talk to me a little bit about what makes him special as a quarterback, and what are some of the weapons around him that makes this offense tick? Because when Tech is clicking, I mean, they can put up lots of points. And so, just give us a little insight into what makes this offense run.
Yeah, so you mentioned the conference of quarterbacks. It was that way for a long time, and then it was all offense, and then it didn't really matter who was quarterback, and you were getting guys that were decent quarterbacks, but were putting up ridiculous numbers. And now it's been like with the resurgence of stout defenses in the conference, but also aligning with like a pretty strong era of quarterbacks at most of the Big 12 teams. Like everybody's got a good quarterback. Barry Morton's no different. I think the biggest knock on him has been his health the past few years. This past weekend against Kansas State was only his second complete game of the season. Whether that was because he was being held out to recover, or he only played in the first half because of the opponent. Like he only played the first half of the first 3 games, the non-conference schedule. Part of that was like he did the injury that he's been most we've been most concerned about happened in that first game, but he came back and played the first half of the second game. But then at that point, after the half, it was out of hand anyways. The biggest thing we can get with Baron Morton when he's in the game and he's healthy is just his command of the offense. It's his, I think at least of his third offensive coordinator here, but he seemed to fit in and mesh with all of these guys very well. Mac Leftwich, the new offensive coordinator this season, would probably tend to lean more towards having a little bit more of a mobile quarterback, and that's Morton can move to extend plays and to throw. He can pick up yards on the ground with his feet, but that is not his game, and it's certainly not what he's being asked now with Will Hammond now out for the rest of the season and probably all of next season too. There's just no depth behind him. What's left is Mitch Griffiths, who is a transfer in from Wake Forest, and then true freshman from local high school there, and Holden Phillips. What Morton does,
freshman quarterbacks. I just kidding.
Well, let me just say, Holden Phillips is not Bear Bachmeyer. I 100% can say that without any kind of like, I'm not putting down our guy, but he's just not Bear Bachmeyer.
If you are,
the thing that Morton does so well is that he gets Texas Tech into the right place, right? Like he doesn't have the biggest arm. He's like I said, not the most mobile guy, but he's got such command of the offense. Like he reads defenses well enough that like he changes the play a lot on his own, and just knows when to push that button to get the guys, whether it's an RPO or change it back into a run play and just let your running backs handle it. He has made mistakes, but they haven't been like killer mistakes. He's taken the occasional bad sack. But again, the game you lost, he didn't play in that game. So like you couldn't put that on him. Him being unavailable, you could say like that was somewhat on him, but really what he's old. He's mature, he's poised, he operates the system within the constraints of the offense. He doesn't try to do too much. Like I said, he doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the fastest guy, but he runs the offense and commands it so like when things are going, it's so efficient. It's beautiful to see. And like I said, it's just more like he does all the little things right more than he hits the big play over the top or he burns somebody out of the backfield.
Okay. And I mean, how are they beating people? I mean, I'm just trying to look at stats here, and it looks like, I mean, both teams are pretty even in terms of rushing yards on the season, but you've got almost 1,000 more passing yards. Now, granted, BYU plays a slower pace, and so that kind of limits the number of possessions, but Tech has put up a lot through the air, and that's with multiple quarterbacks, if you include Will Hammond getting some significant time in before getting injured. So talk to me about like what kind of schematically, when things are, as you said, things are just beautiful, things are clicking, what is it that allows this team to click, and what really is its bread and butter?
So it's really based on the balance of the offense. You can't key in on any one guy or position. A lot like what makes the Texas Tech defense really strong is like you can't take just one thing away. You can't target just one thing and say like we're going to be successful on the day by doing this one thing. Um, Texas Tech has had really good games where they ran the ball just like for ridiculous numbers. I think they put up almost 400 yards on the ground versus Kansas. They've had big games through the air, but they haven't needed to have a big game through the air. That seems to be more of like you throw it when you have to, and you put up big numbers through the air when you have to. The versatility of the guys that are on the field, I think, really go a long way. So you've got almost said CeeDee Lamb. That's Dallas Cowboys. Caleb Douglas, the other CD, your outside receiver. Is a big play threat, but not like you're deep down the field. He's just the possession receiver that will go get tough yards. Reggie Verge on the other side has some wiggle in him. Like it takes a few guys to bring him down. He makes guys miss in very small spaces. Jacoby Williams was always thought to be the very versatile running back / slot receiver. And then when we lost our perceived starting running back for the season in fall camp, and his role got elevated back into being a rotational running back guy. His kick return duties and his slot receiver duties were very much limited early in the season just to make sure that we had bodies. That's opened up quite a bit the past few weeks. He's been returning kicks. He had the kickoff return for a touchdown versus Oklahoma State. And he's been very much involved in the passing game. He had that big explosive play in that first series against Utah that set up Texas Tech's first score of the day. And then the other, like, if there's going to be one guy that I think can really set up how well the Texas Tech offense plays, it's Terrence Carter. Is the do everything tight end that when you look at him, he doesn't really fit the mold of like a stereotypical or prototypical tight end. He's not like a big guy that was just going to be, bodying people and catching the short passes. But he's not just a big receiver either. He's been very, very valuable in helping open up run lanes at the point of attack. Very much a mismatch in the passing game for sure. He moves very, very fluidly and smoothly for a guy his size, but also very good at blocking, which you wouldn't really expect when you see him. And he came back. He had missed some time. He did come back this past weekend versus Kansas State. He's been playing through some injuries all season. He didn't look 100%. There were times that he was limited a little bit versus the Wildcats. But if there's one guy that makes the offense go, it's going to be what Terrence Carter does, because he allows just so much to happen along the offensive line as a sixth blocker, but also as a decoy in there and just a very viable pass catching option. Running backs are good, and Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams much better than I would have expected coming into the season. Expected Cam Dickey to be more of the Taj Brooks mold, like he's going to get the hard fought yards and not be that explosive. He is much faster than I thought. It's still very much difficult to bring down, but has top end speed that we didn't see the past few years in Taj Brooks. Jacoby Williams, we thought was going to be more the gadget guy, fast and shifty, and he is, but he's also shown some moments of power where he's been bottled up and he breaks tackles at the point of attack, and just like these two guys shouldn't be doing what they're doing together. So it's really, like I said, the power of the offense is just the balance of it. You can find success through the air, whether it's whatever receiver is going to be hot and catching the ball, or if it's going to be Terrence Carter, or if it's going to be on the ground. There's just enough playmaking ability across the field that you just find out who is on that day or is ready to go right then. And that's what Baron Morton's been really good at doing, is finding out those guys quickly.
All right. So on the flip side, when Tech's offense has sputtered a little bit, like 3 quarters against Utah or part of the, 3/4 maybe of the K-State game or even ASU, whatever. What have teams done to slow this team down? Has it been something consistent that every team has done, or has it been in different ways? Or like, what is it, especially when Baron Morton's playing? Because obviously you had different quarterbacks in, but what have teams been able to do successfully?
Yeah, so specifically, like it's been different for all those games. Against Utah, it was a very good pass rush um, that was disruptive enough that we weren't getting the ball out fast enough. And they had paired with a pretty good defensive secondary. Um, now, eventually, like we were able to find some space. I think that mainly came once Will Hammond came in, and it turned a little bit more of with his dual threat abilities. They weren't able to either, just sit back and pass coverage and create just a pass rush. They had to also honor the run, which had been fairly well contained up until that point. With Arizona State, they did a very good job of not letting any Texas Tech ball carrier or any guy with the ball break any tackles and get anywhere. So they very much limited yards after catch or yards after contact. Because like I said, like this offense isn't taking huge downfield shots all game. Like there are times when there will be a shot down the sideline, and a deep shot taken. That's not where this offense is most explosive. It's going to be broken tackles or getting into a behind a blitz or around pressure that the defense kind of forces something. And then Kansas State, let's see, they cause an early turnover with that Austin Romaine interception. It was almost like he came on a blitz on an interior screen, and I don't know if he got if the block that picked him up pushed him back into the throwing lane, or if he dropped off and was I'm willing to give him benefit of the doubt that he's as good of a linebacker, he could have dropped back into that throwing lane. But also seeing it live, it looked like our center blew him up pretty good, and he kind of stumbled backwards, and then the ball was in his lap. That kind of started some uncertainty early on in that game. And then I'm trying to think of what else Kansas State was able to do. Well, there was just a lot of drops from the offense. Texas Tech was able to run the ball fairly successfully throughout that game. So it's been different depending on which game it's been. I don't know if that's a good thing for Texas Tech or a bad thing. It's there's just multiple ways to slow down this offense. But again, when you look at when that's happened, you weren't 100% healthy versus Utah. You actually got better offensively when Baron Morton went out and Will Hammond came in. I think that was more of a scheme shift. On the road at Arizona State, you played without Baron Morton the entire game, and we weren't able to get the running game going. And for whatever reason, Will Hammond was not very accurate in that game. And then it just took some time to get settled in on the road against Kansas State, who was also a very good tackling team, and kept that game close until defensively Texas Tech was able to create just many more opportunities and short fields to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, and this brings us right into my question about the defense of what makes it great, because from what I've seen, and I haven't watched as much Tech as I'd like to. I've caught, parts of games here and there, but I caught almost most of the K-State game. And what I see is just the ability to wear teams down and big guys in the trenches. And one thing before we go, I got to say, so BYU in 2023 coming into the Big 12 brought in a lot of guys from the portal, and BYU struggled. A lot of teams have done this, but Tech has not only mixed, having a lot of the money and the resources, putting it in the right places and getting talent in, but then being able to get that talent to mesh and play cohesively, that is the part that not everybody is able to do. So what Tech has done, everyone's just saying like, oh, they're throwing money at it. Well, guess what? So are all these other major brands. We just haven't seen Tech do it on this level with these big name brands before. And so I find that argument or that kind of dig at Texas Tech unfair, but also not everyone is able to do it at this level and overhaul this roster the way you have and make it a cohesive, like really good football team. So super impressive. Um, but one of the things I think that you guys focused on was building up in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and that is just something that even in those close games really pays dividends once you get into that fourth quarter and you just have that depth and the size and just the ability to wear teams down. But having said that, you guys have very good defense. I see Tech people saying, well, BYU hasn't played a defense like this before. Well, vice versa. I don't think Tech has necessarily played a defense like BYU's before or yet this season. I mean, we've both played Utah and won. Utah is also another really good team. But having said that, I do think this is going to be a major step up and challenge for BYU this weekend. And a big part of that is going to be the defense. So what do you expect this defense to come out and do? What should we expect from, like, what is the style of play, but also what would you expect their game plan to be coming into to beat and slow down a team like BYU?
Yeah, so I think when we look at common opponents, it's obviously going to have to be like what we've both done against Utah. I think Utah has been the best opponent that either one of us has faced, and obviously it helps that like they're right behind both of us and our respective teams. Just waiting for somebody to slip up and work their way back into a title game scenario. What Texas Tech can do defensively is going to be based on what their defensive line is doing. And that's not just saying what David Bailey and Romello Hyde are doing. The unsung hero of this defense has got to be Lee Hunter, the transfer in from UCF. He's not going to make the numbers on the stat sheet. You won't see something that's going to blow up and say like, oh my gosh, Lee Hunter had a big game. But as the center anchor of a defense, he does much more for this defense than anybody else you could probably pinpoint besides like a David Bailey or Jacob Rodriguez. He just doesn't get any kind of accolades or stats or credit for it. He commands double teams, triple teams, a lot of attention. He allows everybody else to do what they do because of how good and how big and how strong he is. We've been now a couple weeks without Skylar Gill-Howard. He's going to be out the rest of the season, another really good transfer. But the other huge point about this defensive line is just how deep it is. So when Skylar Gill-Howard went down, his replacement that came in was AJ Holmes, starter from the Houston defense last year with this defensive coordinator. He came over with Coach Wood. Behind both of those guys are starters from last year's teams. Like we've got 2 and 3 guys deep with Big 12 starters along the defensive line. So when they have to rotate out because they need a break, because these huge mountains of humans, they don't have the stamina to play all 70 snaps on defense 100%. When they need a break, like the depth behind them is more than just a body to fill up a spot. So what they're going to try to do is make the BYU offense a little bit more one-dimensional. We want to limit, we continue to lean on our strong rush defense and get BYU offenses into third and longs, second long, third and long, where we can dictate more of a defense. BYU has to throw the ball here. They're going to be more successful if they try to throw the ball here. And then to let the pass rush really get after Bear Bachmeier. I don't pretend to be in the defensive meetings. What I would do is continue to try to be very stout against the run Texas Tech is giving up. It only just now crested 70 yards a game. It's at 75 yards per game, less than 2.5 yards per carry on the ground. that number has been going up the past few weeks because that's just, the nature of playing. We're now in game 10 of the season, and we just came off of a game where we gave up 100 and whatever yards against Arizona State, Kansas State. But that was all their offense could do, essentially. They had some success through the air, but not to the extent where it really changed anything of our defensive game plan. So contain or slow down the run game, force third and longs to either get into obvious passing situations or to get into BYU to punt the ball back, to let the pass rush and our pass defense be able to do what they do really well. The outs of the corners are really good cover guys, especially Bryce Pollock. I think we're weakest up the middle. We talked about this on the 23 Personnel podcast. Pass defense with our linebackers and our safeties would be the lone spot I would be most concerned about on the defense. But typically those routes need a little bit more time to develop, and we've kind of hid that deficiency with great pressure, and kind of forcing teams to try to beat you on a third and long when they just don't have time to do it.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, that sounds like a recipe for success. Obviously, Tech has had success doing this. I've got to call out somebody in particular, Jacob Rodriguez, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And he, I mean, alone is responsible for 7 forced fumbles. And let me see. I think BYU, I'm looking at it, has 4 all season. And on top of that, he has a couple interceptions. And so he sounds like just a complete force to be reckoned with. I really, that's just incredible. And obviously BYU has, I think, a lot of studs at linebacker as well. But I guess where I'm going with this is both teams have been really successful at causing turnovers. I'm looking at it, total interceptions. Tech has had 10 all season, and BYU has had 12. And so pretty similar there. Both teams are good at causing that. That's one thing that I think BYU is exceptional at with their defensive schemes, is just creating a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos. And people say there's these fluky turnovers. Maybe some of them, but it happens enough that, you have to chalk a lot of it up to scheme. But it looks like Tech also has guys that can go out there and make plays and cause turnovers. So I think a lot of this is going to come down to which team is going to be able to take care of the ball better, considering both teams are really well equipped to cause turnovers. And I mean, that's always, everyone knows, like, you turn the ball over, it's going to really hurt you. But I think in a game where it's going to be this competitive and both teams are both so good, it really will come down to that. And, it's going to be more imperative than ever, I think, to take care of the ball. All right. So Spencer, tell me, what is your prediction for the game? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, one, I want to just to take a step back and talk about Jacob Rodriguez for half a second. Sure. You mentioned he's got 7 forced fumbles. He had 2 this past week versus Kansas State. What's just amazing about this is, like, everybody will see it coming. Like, there's nothing subtle about him punching the ball out, and it's something it's obviously taught on this defense because he's not the only one doing it. One of our corners actually got robbed of a forced fumble because on review they went back and said the receiver never actually had control of the ball. But, like, he is just so incredibly, like, that's one very niche talent that he has as a linebacker is going in there and punching the ball out. And it's very much like he punches the ball out. So, like, recovering a fumble may be more the luck side of things because you don't know what's going to happen once the ball is out, right? Like, you could punch the ball and it goes right back to them. But they forced 10 fumbles. Jacob Rodriguez himself has done 7 of those. Texas Tech has recovered 16 fumbles on this season. They've caught 10 interceptions. Some of that's going to be based on your pressure, making them throw it to you and under duress or not in good opportunities for the opposing quarterback. But really, it's just been uncanny ability to punch the ball out. And then Texas Tech maybe has been lucky to recover so many of these, but like you only recover so many because there's so many opportunities to do it. He's just a fantastic linebacker. We talked about this a lot every week. For those that, BYU fans that haven't watched the Texas Tech game, one, you're going to hear a lot about Jacob Rodriguez. You're going to hear a lot about his wife, who's a helicopter pilot in the Army. They're fantastic human beings. They're wonderful people. I've met him, spent some time with him when I worked at the hospital up in Lubbock when he would come out to visit patients there as a player. Wonderful person, fantastic football player, unbelievable turnover machine. How all this plays into the game this weekend. I'm a very big believer. I wanted to downplay the home and away splits for Texas Tech earlier because there were a lot of road games early on in Texas Tech's season. Coming into the season, we had 3 road games on our schedule that we all kind of circle. It's like, if Texas Tech is going to do something special this season, they need to win in 2 or maybe all 3 of these games. And it was at Utah, at Arizona State, at Kansas State. Texas Tech went 2-1 in those games, was in a position to win all 3 of them. But they are statistically significantly better at home. BYU, I think, if you don't dive deep into it, you can say, well, BYU doesn't play that well on the road. Small sample size. You can also say everything's a small sample size, statistically speaking. I just think that like Texas Tech is so well-rounded and that their defensive scheme has multiple ways that it can beat you, or they can apply lots of pressure. Baron Morton, when healthy and at home, does so much better than when he's on the road. The environment this weekend is going to be unbelievable, something that we haven't seen in Lubbock in a very long time. I think it has the makings of, if everything goes the way that you look at statistics and kind of project out, it could be within a 1-score game. And I think that favors Texas Tech. But if it's a 1-score game, it really could be anybody's game. What we've seen from Texas Tech is they've turned 1-score games into 3-score games in the blink of an eye in the fourth quarter because they've worn teams out. Is that going to happen to BYU? I don't know. I would love for it to happen. But that's not what I want. Isn't what's doesn't always happen. If you were to take and look at the season averages and kind of project it out, I think it's again within 1 score in favor of Texas Tech, even without considering home and away. Some of the advanced models has this. The one I like a lot is the advanced stats from CFB Graphs has this one 27-21 in favor of Texas Tech. That feels like a lot of points for BYU, honestly. But also like it could be right on. I don't know how much of that is just like, I want to see, BYU score 13 and Texas Tech score 100. I don't know. What I think it's going to be, what it's going to come down to is at the end of the game, which I expect to still be a close game towards the end, the last few possessions, who is still in the fight, whether because their will has not been broken or they're not too frustrated out of their own game. Like if Texas Tech has not pulled away, are they going to still be fighting in this game, or are they going to be frustrated that they haven't put BYU away? I don't think there's going to be any overlooking of BYU. Not like, oh, we should have beaten them by now. Like we're getting, fed up with this. But what we've seen at home and in most of these games outside of Arizona State is that like it's close until it isn't. And that there's a turning point, a tipping point in all these games. If that doesn't come, is Texas Tech still going to be able to find a way to win the game? I like their chances, especially at home. So I've got Texas Tech winning this one probably in like the 27-23, 27-24 type of range, well within the 1-score range. I think 8.5 points when it opened up last Saturday was a lot. It went to 10.5. Don't ask me why. Besides Texas Tech covering basically every week, and they're trying to figure out how to make money off these games. So if I were to bet, I would take BYU plus 10.5. probably a safe under here, the 53.5. That's the last one number I saw. But I like Texas Tech at home in a close game in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to pick against Tech. I definitely think BYU covers. This is just they've just covered time and again, and we talked about this over in your video. I will say that it'll also be close, and I think it's a drag out fight. And in those games, I like BYU even on the road. They did it in Arizona. Had to go to overtime. BYU found a way. They did it coming down multiple scores in Jack Trice Stadium against Iowa State and found a way to come back and win convincingly. They've been in hostile environments. Bear Bachmeier is just the epitome of poise, and this team just seems to thrive in those situations. The difference is BYU is going up against another team that also does really well in those situations. So hopefully coming off the bye week, BYU is fresh. BYU is feeling a little bit healthier because they're going to need guys to play deep into the fourth quarter and just be playing strong still at that point. Otherwise, we could see what Tech has done to other teams where you start rolling in the fourth, and BYU has done that as well. So I'm going to pick BYU wins 27-24. I don't know, but I do think it'll be close, and I just hope for a good game. And actually, while both of us want our teams to win impressively, what's best for the Big 12 is that this is a good game, and that neither team kind of embarrasses the other team, and they come out both looking strong, and that is going to be best case scenario, I think, for the conference. We can keep both teams. I mean, realistically, it's never worked out well for the Big 12. I'm sure whoever loses will drop out of the top 10, but it'd be great if it was just one of those games where you're like, yeah, they are 7-8. We would expect them to be in a close fight and and that hopefully they don't get penalized. It doesn't seem like it's historically worked that way.
Well,
But
you say that though. I think I saw comments from the CFB committee came out tonight in favor of Texas Tech that they got some credit for a close loss. So like if it's close, you may get credit for that instead of getting dinged as much as you may see in the AP poll, which is vastly overrated and two, it's way too volatile, and you get weird anomalies with like the guy that the voter down in Baton Rouge, I think, has had like one of the most wild ballots all season. He gets called out basically every week. Stuff like that. I think that's kind of baked out of this one. So, I think from what I've heard, a close Texas Tech win in this game maintains a strong presence for Texas, not for Texas, for the Big 12. For me, I want to see Texas Tech in between the 5 and 8 range. I want to see them stay there. I don't really care to get like the first round bye, but I think hosting a playoff game like that's just like it's otherworldly what that can do for you to get you into the second round into those bigger games. I think Provo, Salt Lake, Lubbock would have unbelievable atmospheres for a first round home playoff game. Does Big 12 get 3 teams in? Probably not.
Probably not, but it feels like there's a path there for the first time
there
ever.
Is a path because you saw you've got Texas Tech and BYU 7-8 and then Utah at 13. These 3 teams have already played each other. They're not going to knock each other out. Each have their own schedules to navigate to finish the season and then to get to a conference title game and then work out all the weird tiebreakers. But like, it's possible you could see 3 teams with a shot there at the end and 3 teams that legitimately are very strong contenders and would have, like I said, unbelievable atmospheres to host a first round playoff game. I wouldn't want to miss any of those games.
No. I don't think Utah has hopes of hosting one at this point, but unless somehow weird tiebreakers get them into the conference championship game. But nonetheless, yeah, it would be great to see 3 teams, even if it means Utah being one of them. I'm afraid of like seeing like a Holy War rematch in the playoff. That I don't know if I can handle that kind of suspense, for a second game this season against Utah. But anyway, that's way in the future. We'll worry about all those scenarios this weekend. It is BYU at Texas Tech. I am stoked for this one. This is arguably the biggest game in either team's recent history. I don't know how far back you really want to go, but it is up there in terms of importance and spotlight and the amount of viewers that I think this game is going to have. And so hopefully it lives up to the billing. I'm super stoked about it. Thanks all for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Always forget to plug my own show. Please do that. It really helps us. And we love bringing you these types of collaborations, but also Spencer and I recorded another perspective already doing the BYU side of things for his show. I will, once that one comes out, I'll add that. But if it's not linked in there, when you watch this video, I'll have his content all linked in the show notes below. So make sure you go check him out, his show as well, part of the College Huddle. Really appreciate having Spencer on and doing this with us and discussing and give us some insights into Texas Tech. So thank you so much, Spencer.
I appreciate the time, Trevor. We look forward to the game this weekend. Hopefully it's a great game, great atmosphere. And that regardless of outcome, both teams are coming out healthy and, competitive the rest of the way. I'd hate for there to be some kind of just anything major, significant, season impacting to come out of the game. I don't want that at all. That would just be terrible. I'm not saying that to be facetious or anything. I'm being honest. Like, one, it's been fantastic to get to interact with a fan base like BYU's and have actual entertaining discourse back and forth, and not just all these barbs that are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And like, these guys obviously well educated in what they're talking about, and also poised in a spot where like it's been very entertaining in the best possible way. So it's been a great week. It's only Tuesday. So many more days to go this week. Like I said, hope for a great game this weekend, and for both teams to be healthy coming out of it. So
yeah, absolutely. Sure. I second that. It's been a very cordial, been very harmonious kind of a hate week, as people like to call it. And it seems like both fan bases, there's a lot of mutual respect there, and a lot of new connections and friendships made from it. So, which is what this is all about. Yeah, so thanks for calling that out too. So yeah, definitely go check out Spencer and the 23 Personnel podcast. Definitely like and subscribe here, and then also come back after the game, win or lose, rain or shine. We will be here to break down that game and discuss that. So please come back and join us for that. We'd love to get in the comments and the interactions there. So Spence, thanks for joining. As always, go Cougs.